Today, we spoke to Holly Kerr, who is a global social media manager of an international consultancy. We spoke about failure and one of the biggest mistakes that she's made in her career.
There was some external advice given that was, actually for this social account, you can merge all your existing followers across these various accounts into one account, meaning you don't have to start from scratch. You can have 2 million followers immediately for your new brand.
Oh.
And that isn't the case.
No.
You can't do that.
We also dive into LinkedIn and how she's championing it for the business that she works for in order to elevate the personal profiles of the people in the business.
I was having a hard time making the sell internally to people and kind of rallying them to want to invest in themselves ultimately, because that is what I do believe you're doing if you are posting on LinkedIn. So this year I kind of said to myself, right, I'm going to do it. I'm really going to do it. I've been doing it, but I'm going to go in. At the moment, I'm serving as a case study for people for what you can, get from it internally.
We also dive into some buzzwords and phrases like fail fast and thought leadership and why these aren't always necessarily a good thing to mention. Stephen Bartlett is a massive advocate of saying, right, fail fast, keep failing. And it's a very popular thing to think now.
It's a really good concept, right? It's a really good idea. I think what I found is when you work in different landscapes and you're doing, whether it's marketing or anything else, sometimes there isn't the room to do it because people want results.
This is a fantastic episode for aspiring marketers looking to climb the ladder and experiment with different types of content for very regulated businesses. Hello, Holly.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining me today on The Crowded Market. You've come down from London today. We met at DMWF, Digital Marketing World Forum, didn't we? Where you were dragged into filming a Vox Pop for an event film.
Yes.
So, a strange occurrence to me, but kind of like thankful because now you're here on the podcast talking to us. Can you just quickly, briefly tell me who you are and what you do, firstly, so there's a bit of context?
Well, thank you for having me. I'm Holly Kerr and I lead our social media team at Atkins Realis, which is an engineering construction consultancy business that's kind of global. So spend my time managing all the sorts of different social media platforms, but work with marketing and have a bit of, my background is quite broad in marketing. So spend my time kind of persuading people that social media can be a really key part of their marketing plan overall.
Massively. Global social media lead. What a title. So after I met you, I connected with you on LinkedIn. I probably sent you some sort of sales pitch, I imagine, as a small business owner. But I started noticing that you're quite active on LinkedIn. Not only that, you do a lot of talks and panels and things like that, which is great, especially I think for the marketing community. It's important for people to get out there. LinkedIn's a strange place. We were just talking about how people love to hate it as well, who aren't in it. It's a place full of brands. It's a place full of personal voices, thought leadership, the massive, the two words that you hear put together very often. There's an argument between brand accounts, personal accounts. What's your experience with it as a global social media lead?
Yeah.
What is your experience with personal accounts on LinkedIn compared to brand?
Yeah, I think so. This year I made a conscious effort because the tide was turning. We saw that company pages were losing their efficacy and engagement levels, and that's intentional. LinkedIn want to make more money from us so that we'll spend with ads with them. So they've moved that chunk of visibility and transferred over to people. And I was having a hard time making the sell internally to people and kind of rallying them to want to invest in themselves ultimately, because that is what I do believe you're doing if you are posting on LinkedIn, regardless of where you work. So this year I kind of said to myself, right, I'm going to do it. I'm really going to do it. I've been doing it, but I'm going to go in and make a content plan for myself and put myself out there, which has then led to opportunities and kind of things you mentioned. But at the moment, I'm serving as a case study for people for what you can, get from it internally. My goal, though, is that I shouldn't be the case study. I don't want to be the case study. I want to have a group of people from all different backgrounds and generations in our business who are using the platform and leveraging it for all sorts of reasons. And for us, that's talking to clients and telling the stories of how we impact communities and building on their personal brand. What I say to people is, you are just investing in yourself. And it doesn't matter why you're doing it right now, because it will help you in the future. So it's worthwhile.
Absolutely. And there's an element of, you'd say all these things to friends or colleagues about things that you've been up to, accomplishments, and that's kind of all you're using LinkedIn for, is to obviously share expertise, but also say what you've actually been doing in terms of in business, in work, which, you've generated a strong following in that sense, especially seeing as you don't use it almost for your own. Normally it's business owners, right? Or execs or somebody like that who use it as a strong thing to turn into a personal brand and things like that. But something that we see massively because of a lot of the podcasts that we make is championing social profiles and personal profiles. We go to a business, we say, who do you want to position at the forefront of your business, and who are the people who are willing to do it as well? Yeah,
definitely. And I think what we've noticed is where the impact of the company page has kind of, it's not gone completely, but it's completely different from 5 years ago and even a year ago. Even if you had 1 million followers, you're not getting the same cut through as when the same message is shared by a person. And I think that then changes the landscape, because companies speak in a certain way. And everyone has their tone of voice, and you could be like Innocent Smoothies and have a really strong case study for having a tone of voice in a particular way. Or you could be a company like the one I work for, where I can't live tweet the Bake Off because it's not right. So where our people though can come in and actually talk about the announcement or whatever it is they're sharing and why it matters, in amongst being just a genuine person. I think that's what's cutting through. It's authenticity. We hear that a lot. I always go authenticity, because it's all manufactured anyway, but being as real as you can be with your agenda, because everyone has an agenda more or less when they are out there posting.
Like this, right?
Exactly.
This is like me and you having a discussion and a chat about two things that we work in, but it's real, and people see who we are for who we are to a degree. And whether it's B2C or B2B, it's always to a person. There's always a person receiving it on the other end. Audiences on LinkedIn kind of dispersed. I remember we spoke about this briefly on our call about how audience size doesn't necessarily mean it's a successve strategy.
It's something we've seen as well. So where people are now looking at the idea of a B2B influencer, there's been a bit of chatter about it this year, and I've not seen it happening on a large scale, but we've been trying to experiment here and there. And sometimes experiments don't go well. And in my experience, that's because people have focused on metrics that they think matter, like you said, follower size. Whereas actually, if that person if you approach somebody and they don't want to work with you, they're not the right person. And I don't think we remember that in those conversations. So if you want to get your message out there in an authentic way, that partnership does really have to come around organically. And if they have 2,000 people, but those 2,000 people show up and are really interested, I'd far rather invest in that than 200,000 people and you get some metrics out of it, but it doesn't mean anything at the end of the day.
False economy is what we call that. Vanity metrics, a couple of phrases to kind of explain what happens there is you get big numbers, but there's no results attached to it. And that's because you're targeting, you're getting seen by a lot of people, but it's also by a lot of people who don't actually give a shit. To a degree.
Totally.
Which is false. Whereas, what we always say when, we create podcasts for businesses and we go, right, you're going to have maybe 100 listeners, right, to start with, but there'll be 100 people who actually care.
Yes.
And so really it'll be a very, very dedicated audience. And that's what you've got to kind of take away from this. Another popular expression that we hear amongst thought leadership and all the other ones, failing fast.
Yes.
Is a big one. People love to say it. I think kind of Stephen Bartlett is a massive advocate of saying, right, fail fast, keep failing. And it's a very popular thing to think now. I think what you said to me is that it's not necessarily all that. And sometimes there isn't a facility to do that.
And I think it's a really good concept, right? It's a really good idea. We should all be encouraged to try, fail, learn, try again. That's not a new idea. I think what I found is when you work in different landscapes and you're doing, whether it's marketing or anything else, sometimes there isn't the room to do it because people want results. People have made an investment, they want a return. So I think it's a good concept, but it doesn't always translate. And I've been guilty of saying it and not really meaning it. And I think there's so much jargon that we kind of waste our time kind of spitting out at each other. But actually, in a few instances where we genuinely have built in the ability to fail, I think you just learn so much. You get more success from it in the long run, even if it's just testing. So looking at a global company with global messages and a global kind of channel ecosystem, sometimes we pilot something in a really small way just for a small part of the business. And that enables that mindset, I think, more than anything, because then you can try and then kind of go, we're trying this, everyone.
Yeah.
We're not promising and over-promising and under-delivering. We're going to have a go, and then maybe it'll work and maybe it won't, and maybe it'll be inconclusive.
Yeah, I mean, because if you did a global social campaign and you had this fail fast mindset,
wouldn't work.
That could go terribly wrong, right?
Yes.
You know, convey the wrong messaging, and then it's all gone to pot, which would be terrible. So you kind of have to take that expression with a pinch of salt, really, is what you're saying. And I mean, there's too many buzzwords. There's fail fast, disruptors.
I know, yeah.
You got thought leadership, of course, which is kind of something we champion a little bit, but I would love a new phrase for that. But yeah, people love to just, like you said, spout these out and make them, kind of, but not really understanding the meaning, and that it doesn't always apply.
No.
Especially in marketing.
No, and in some situations, it's not appropriate to fail fast. Like sometimes you just need to get it right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you need to have taken the lessons you learned before. And
that's the harsh reality.
And bring them to the situation you're in. And so it's about, I think, having that ability to understand, like, this is not a moment in which we need that culture here.
Yeah.
Actually, for something I have to communicate is the business's quarterly results, right? And to me, it's very dry. I'm invested in it because it's got to go out, but that isn't something on which we can fail fast. If we get that wrong,
true.
There's massive implications that can have a financial impact on the business.
Tacked an extra zero on the end of that one, and
exactly. So
true. Yeah. That could convey some wrong information. You've had a kind of long career in this space. There must have been some sort of, something's gone wrong somewhere. Like I love to dive into where people have kind of made some mistake or tripped up somewhere and what they've learned from it, because I guarantee that there's somebody listening to this that has or will go through that and will not have a clue how to navigate it. Have you got an example of something that's gone really wrong?
100%. I've made so many mistakes, and a lot of them were to do with people and how you manage people and how you take them on a journey. But something like an actual, big error was when we were rebranding the company recently, bringing together lots of brands and making one global brand. There was some external advice given that was, actually for this social account, you can merge all your existing followers across these various accounts into one account, meaning you don't have to start from scratch. You can have 2 million followers immediately for your new brand.
Oh.
And that isn't the case.
No.
You can't do that. And I wasn't actually in the team at the time, but the team at the time found out the reality 2 weeks to go. And obviously we've been working on a big brand project for over a year, lots of parties involved, massive scale of this. To hear that news, you then have to kind of pivot. And there was no plan B, but it had to come about very quickly. And the plan is, we have to launch a new account. We're going to have to now really focus on how we're going to grow the follower base, because to a lot of people, that is how they judge success, rightly or wrongly. We've just spoken about company pages being less significant than they used to be, but it is still important. Yeah. And there's not actually kind of a real glossy, and we did this and everything was fine ending, which I think sometimes, it'd be neater if there was. But to be honest, we had to really focus. We had to think broadly about how we could gain followers. And the way we now view it, which I think is a bit of a positive spin, is the people that follow us now have followed us within the last 2 years. So we know that they want to follow us.
True.
So we don't have dormant millions of followers, but at least they're active, or they were in the last couple of years. And we'll talk to them and ask them what they want, and trying to keep building it. So
yeah, absolutely. And I know we talk about that personal profiles are more important than business ones because the viewership and the retention is better and people like talking to people. But yeah, the brand account needs to exist. Like this is still a place, this is almost a place where people will go to see the bit. Like once the interest has been piqued, they'll always go there.
It's got to be credible.
You're not going to be sharing the content from there that's going to have any sort of, you're not going to raise too much discussion. It's going to be what the company's up to, services provided. It's going to... It essentially is a website. I
know, I was about to say this. It's for me these days, it's much more of a shop window than anything actual. You know, there are a few things we've shared recently that have performed really well. And the reason they've performed well is because our people internally have really liked it, felt really proud, got behind it, reposted it.
Yes.
And that, I think people used to come to me and be like, oh, you know, of those X amount of likes or, you know, this engagement rate score, how much of it was driven by our people though? As if it was a bad thing that our people were engaging with it. Because the feeling was, no, we're not aiming at them. We're not targeting our people. We want their clients and, you know, prospective clients. But actually, the way the algorithm now works, the way the feed works, that means their clients are going to see it, or there's much more of a chance they're going to see it if our people engage with it. So it's not all bad.
No, it's not. And why not use a LinkedIn page to, especially with, you know, for a company that you work for the scale, the amount of people that it must be. I can't even imagine how hard it is to keep morale up in every single department across that, you know, it must be so hard. But having that central hub where they see, oh, that's what the company's been up to, cool development there, that's amazing. And they've all got their own network. So when they're sharing that piece of content, they're also sharing it across their network, who are prospective clients and whatnot and people like that, aren't
and
they?
you touched on something, actually, it's a lot, people forget often that internally a lot of people get their news from LinkedIn, from their own company page, especially when you're 40,000 employees across the world in different time zones, and their specific leadership team might have not shared that message yet because it's not deemed to be overly relevant. But when you belong to such a big organization, it's something we have to consider, that actually, are we breaking this news for our people? But we try and work closely with the internal communications team, but it's just not the same.
No.
The internal social media platforms and all the different channels, it can be overwhelming, and LinkedIn works well. So we should just probably embrace that and know that some of them might see something for the first time there, and that's okay.
It does. We hear about team emails and another team email or something like that. Like LinkedIn, at least it's on their terms. They're on a feed. They're like, oh, I've just spotted that, as opposed to it's, oh, and you filled my email up with another kind of team email. Internal comms as well, though. I assume that must be super important for your business of your scale. We make podcasts for businesses that are for just internal comms. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. Like, I can't believe the scale of internal marketing and account-based marketing too, like marketing to, you know, accounts that they're already with them. And it's overwhelming. But you've worked across a lot of areas in marketing. How have you stopped yourself kind of getting stuck in a bubble?
Yeah, well, sometimes I am in my bubble, and I try to be self-aware of my social media bubble. Yes. And it tends to be sometimes too much of a LinkedIn bubble. But because I feel lucky, I feel fortunate, I was able to kind of come up in a really broad role that enabled me to look at web and internal comms and external comms, and then kind of marketing really broadly, as well as a bit of branding. And that's given me a bit of a foundational understanding of what all of these different people now need. So when social can be an afterthought, it's our biggest gripe with our teams internally, who are meant to be our kind of partners. Sometimes I feel like I'm repeating the same message. I'm saying, don't just tell us, you know, you've just remembered it could be good for social and it's, you know, giving us a day's notice. We're not going to do something brilliant if you don't loop us in. So you can feel like you're in that bubble. But what I think helps me is I understand how they can get there, how that happens. And hopefully I can bring some broader perspective to conversations, that I'm not just thinking about optics for social. Yeah. I'm actually able to take a step back and say, yeah, I understand why that decision's been made in that way, or, you know, can we influence this in that way and push it? So I think you kind of wear your many hats and keep them all and don't throw them out.
Yeah, true. It's interesting because, I mean, marketers, they're often seen as the person, right, can you sort the brand, can you sort the website, the content, that is, you know, that's 17 people's jobs. You know, there's a big discussion always on LinkedIn about marketers having to, but you can't be specialists in those, but you need to understand them. Yes. And that's kind of what you're saying here, isn't it? You need to be able to understand these different elements of what goes into it, and synergy. Yeah. Because you know, realistically, you're at the top of all of it. You need to understand what goes into making these websites and brand and internal comms, external comms, and it's to have that overarching, especially if you want to climb the ladder as well in marketing. It's very, very important to have. For a company as big as you, I mean, you must, as big as the one that you work for, you must have so many guidelines to kind of stay within. Marketing in B2B for years was seen as fairly horizontal and stagnant. It's changed. And I think LinkedIn is to thank for that to a degree. People want to be different now and stand out. How do you kind of, especially as in social, how do you kind of stand out and make content that's different?
We try. I think the thing is, I would say at the moment, I always rate our channels, and I'm probably our toughest critic. But what we try and do is our inspiration doesn't just come from those in our industry or in our kind of category. We really try and look beyond, that and not get bogged down in our field, but kind of just go, what did we enjoy? And we try and ask a question, what stops you on social? When you're scrolling, why do you stop?
Yes.
And try and build things like that. And something we've been doing really recently is experimenting on our YouTube account, which has been a bit unloved, and don't go and look at it right now.
I've heard that before.
We're clearing it up over Christmas, so please give us a
Christmas
moment.
clean out, right?
Yeah. But we've been testing with some shorts and seeing what resonates and kind of what is actually working. And some of that, I think if I'd said that to people a year ago, they'd be terrified, like, we can't just go and test a load of stuff. But we've got a project where some beavers have been introduced to an area to help reduce flooding, and it's a nature-based solution. Brilliant. And it's really interesting because how often do you get to talk about beavers? And they're really cool, and we don't really see them too much because they're a wild animal, and they've just been reintroduced. So that we knew was already interesting. So we said to the team, like, can we get involved and can we think about the social element of this, and tried lots of different things. And it's a bit of that, throw pasta at the board on what's sticking. Yeah. And for us at the moment, things that are sticking are really far away from what I think people think of B2B marketing. So we've got 3 facts about beavers that we spit off in a video, and then someone would say to me fairly internally, like, what's that got to do with what we do? And it's got nothing to do with what we do, but it's really interesting. It's racked up loads of views, and those people may then continue their journey to understand what our business does. They might not, but they're probably more likely to go on that journey now than if we'd said, did you know we provide these services and they're really great? Yeah,
and for something that's not taken more, I can't imagine that took an immense amount of time to kind of rustle up. The rewards can be, in comparative to the labour that's kind of put in, it makes so much sense. That's fun. I'm going to look at that after. Be the 3. That's on your YouTube.
I talk about it all the time internally. Yeah, people I think I'm obsessed with beavers. I'm really not, but it's just a good opportunity.
It is
something
a huge
else
opportunity.
We've done is we used to go to events and we do really traditional, get the leader in front of the logo and ask them why they're at the event and tell everyone why it's important. And we tried something recently at an event where we just did a quiz on the topic of the event for the people from our business that were there. And again, it just got some views because you're able to put a title that seems a bit fun. It's less seriously, it's not taking itself too serious. And it is just something you might, if you scrolled up on your reels, you might watch it. Yeah. And it will probably be more interesting than a B2B
100%, standard kind of approach. That's so, for example, we work with a financial planning company called Foster De Novo, financial planning, how you can invest your money. And they wanted to do something on pensions. And they bought the trademark National Pension Tracing Day, which means that people lost all their pension. Basically, there's a lot of money in lost pensions because people forget about them.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, interesting, right?
That's
actually kind of interesting. When I say pensions, you kind of fall asleep. But and their marketing team were brilliant. They came up with this idea of we're going on a hunt for these lost pensions, and they dressed one of their senior C-suite level people in an Indiana Jones outfit, and we filmed him around London looking for these pensions and making a series of we ended up coming out with 15 assets, right, of just him looking around. They did so well. Brand went up. LinkedIn hadn't seen anything like it before. In B2C, it would have been okay, that's another day. B2B. People's minds were blown. They're sorry, a financial planning company is doing this. Yeah. It was just so foreign. So from that, we spoke as well on our call about, you did a drama degree.
Yes, yeah.
This is on to our kind of almost, closing statements, but a drama degree, you were speaking to me on the phone about how this has been hugely impactful in your career and how it's actually helped you.
I think so.
Now, we love to talk about careers in this, and I'd love to understand why.
Yeah, so my drama degree, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to go to university and I was interested in that. And my parents kind of said, do something you like, don't Don't try and do something that you're not going to invest in. And the course was kind of partly practical, partly essays. And in the practical bit, you were forced into groups and you have no say in the group. You just get chucked in the deep end, and groups of like 8 people. And if you want to get a good grade, everyone has to work well together. And it's like forced collaboration in a creative pursuit.
Yeah.
And that's really hard. And especially as a bunch of first years, and then as you kind of keep going through it, it's really difficult to do it. And you make loads of mistakes and you kind of figure out how people don't like being told, to collaborate, or what works and what doesn't work. And something that I think I've taken from it is, and it's not kind of a new idea again, it's yes and then you get taught this if you ever do like improvisational theatre, where if we're in a scene and I say to you, oh my gosh, the treasure map just blew away, and you go, no it didn't, it's here, then you've just ruined the moment. And the reality, everyone comes back down to reality and they're taken out of the moment. And I think it's the same when you get into a corporate space or even just marketing in general. I think we lose a bit of our edge of fun and our creativity. We're a bit scared to suggest a new idea because quite often people don't want to embrace them and they kind of go, no, that's too out there.
Yeah.
But I think people get really good at saying, oh no, not like that, like this. I want to do it this way. And I think if you can come into a conversation, a creative conversation, and build on each other's ideas, that's where the good stuff happens. Yeah. And again, it's not a new idea. It's not something original. It's just, I think we need to be reminded of it quite a lot, and myself included. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm not being very collaborative right now. I need to take a step back and think about it. But the other thing as well is I used to have lots of conversation with people saying, in our lives, we all play different roles in different spaces. So I behave very differently with my brother and sister than I do with you right now, or with my partner, or with my colleagues. And you play these different roles in life. And that's a really good thing to be aware of, but you don't want to forget all of you. You want to bring your whole kind of messy self into the workplace, and especially when you're trying to be creative, because being a bit vulnerable and being open like that is where there's room, I think, for other people to do it too. And again, where like the glimmer of an idea comes out.
It's trust. They trust you. If you're a little bit vulnerable, you release that true version of you, people just feel like there's a connection there. And you can do that, and you can do it on LinkedIn too, can't you? You can. Like, people feel like they know you before they've met you.
Yes.
And that's the power of it, is you just show a little bit of vulnerability. This is the reality of what's happened today, or something like that, and people generate that relationship with you. Holly, it's been really amazing talking to you today. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much.